How long do dolphins live? What's the typical lifespan?
45, but I remember a killer whale is a dolphin, and they're living into their 90s and 100s too, so they can be quite old. Yeah.
Unless somebody eats them first, I guess. I don't think old age would be the primary cause of death.
No, not really. You know, when they're weak or injured, shark predation is a big deal. And, you know, sharks aren't always after dolphins and stuff. We're judged when I see 5 sharks a day, and most of them just leave us alone, or they come up very curious and swim around a little bit, and then they'll go their own way.
What would you say is the most unexpected or unusual thing that Jojo ever did in your presence?
You know, it's really interesting, Marty. There are so many situations where you think of something, and before you get the thought done, the dolphin reacts to it. And I think this is part of their really innate communication, you know, possibilities that they have. Is somebody asked me once, can you get Jojo to get a lobster? And I'd been teaching Jojo for months trying to get lobsters, and I had a little signal like this, and I'd point to a lobster all the time. And, you know, trial and error and coincidence, you can only write it off for so long. And then a group of people were standing in front, and they said, oh, Dean, have Jojo get a lobster. And as soon as I thought of him getting a lobster, he took off, and he brought me back a lobster. And he does this a lot with different things, you know, not just get a lobster, but if I've hidden a wine glass someplace, you know, he can't really see a wine glass, so he'd have to sonar it. And so we've done all these trial and error things just to see if it actually works. And it's so far beyond, oh, that just happened, it was just a one-time situation. So
You would say that he wants to please you.
Well, the instantaneous thought is probably more important than the you know, it's the message that they pick up right away. You know, and it's without words. People ask me, well, do you really talk to dolphins? And I'm like, well, no. A lot of people get in the water with Jojo right away would be like, whoop, whoop, or making all these funny noises. And it's so beyond that. You know, it's really the thought process, I think, that dolphins pick up on.
And dolphins are quite intelligent, even if they don't have the same means to express it in human terms.
Well, human terms would be easy if you talk about their sense of humor. Jojo has a great sense of humor. He really plays a lot of tricks on people. He'll take cameras from people who were divers and stuff, and he'll hide them for a month. By then, the person's gone, and I'll end up with a beautiful RS Nikon camera or something, because Jojo will bring it back to me or something. But he wants attention. He'll take things from people and, you know, expect them to follow him.
Now, I understand that your work hasn't just been limited to Turks and Caicos. You've traveled around the world working with dolphins, and we have another video that shows some of that work. So let's go ahead and roll that tape.
Project quickly gained worldwide recognition. Soon Dean was consulting with groups in countries like Japan, Norway, Italy, Egypt, and Belize, who wanted to start similar programs to protect other lone sociable dolphins. In 1997, Dean was invited to the Sinai to visit a dolphin living in the Egyptian Gulf of Aqaba. The nomadic Bedouins have a long, rich history. It was they who discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls which, when translated, were found to contain references to dolphins and whales. To the Bedouins, they represent a sign to determine the fate of the world. Appropriately, a dolphin began swimming with the small fishing boats of the Bedouin village of Myzina on the Red Sea. She was known by the name of Olin, but the Bedouins also referred to her as Masha Allah, an expression praising the will of God. The dolphin's presence also brought much-needed tourist income to the village, and the Bedouins closely supervised access to the animal. Unfortunately, Olin lost her first 2 calves, Jimmy and Ramadan, to unknown health problems. She became listless, and the Bedouins were concerned for her welfare. When Dean arrived, he approached the dolphin with a sea cucumber, not to feed her, but to stroke her mammary glands as her calf would have done when it was alive. Olin responded warmly and swam with Dean for a long time as he soothed and stroked her as a fellow pod member might have done. This remarkable footage was shot by documentary cameraman Robert Bolgen, who came along to record Dean's visit. Olin gave birth to a 3rd calf in October of 2000. The Bedouin named her Mabsata, which means happy, and she survived under her mother's care. Some sociable dolphins must be protected from outright malice as well as ignorance. Flipper, a lone dolphin in Norway, had recently suffered a gunshot wound, and the locals were anxious to protect him. The island of Karmøy is located on the west coast of Norway. Dean's initial visit to the island revealed little of the dolphin's history, but after researching, Dean discovered just how sad Flipper's story was. 2 communities farther north also had reports of lone dolphins. The first town lost track of their dolphin after it was shot in the head. The second assumed their guest dolphin had perished after being shot. Then Carmoy had a dolphin. After reviewing film, video, and photos of these 3 dolphins and performing a close examination of Flipper, Dean confirmed that they were one and the same. Apparently, Flipper had been shot in 3 separate incidents and moved south each time, finally reaching Carmoy. It was clear to Dean that many fishermen believed dolphins were responsible for raiding their salmon nets, and he was certain this was why Flipper had been shot. Dean was able to persuade the local fishermen that Flipper's appetite could hardly account for more than 30 pounds of fish, while the humans were hauling them in by the ton. Dean even suggested that, far from depleting their catch or diverting the salmon, Flipper was probably guarding the nets from other predators. Dean had witnessed Flipper attacking porpoises that approached fishing nets in the area. It is not unusual for dolphins to cooperate with fishermen, driving their mutual prey into the nets where the dolphins can eat their fill.
And that was our second video showing Dean's work with dolphins. You know, I'm interested in the idea that dolphins are working cooperatively with people. They're taking some of the catch that humans get in the nets, but they're taking care not to damage the nets, not to disturb this kind of symbiotic relationship, which indicates some kind of intelligence.
Yeah, Flipper, for instance, the dolphin in Norway, is a very interesting situation. The reason I go to these places where dolphins are is because you can't really protect the dolphin without protecting the habitat. So in order to set up a national park, reserve, or sanctuary, the identity of the dolphin is really important. Now, to prove the intelligence of a dolphin is really interesting because then people are aware, wow, this is really special. This dolphin had been shot 3 times already. So by the time we could show that, look, this dolphin one day went out and killed a porpoise and brought it to me. And every day he would go out and kill a porpoise and bring it to me. The porpoise is much smaller like this. Well, I started following him out every day, which is freezing cold water, and every day he'd bring a porpoise that he killed. It was very obvious. His teeth marks, you know, matched up to the porpoise kill, and then he finally would break the peduncle between the dorsal fin and the tail so it couldn't swim to the surface, and he would drown it. What he was doing was actually showing the fact that he wasn't the perpetrator taking all the salmon out of the net. He was bringing back one of the porpoise that were coming in hundreds and thousands at a time and completely clearing out the salmon from the net. And that's what we were getting back from the dolphin. He'd bring it right into my arms. And it's very strange you'd see something like this where the dolphin is trying to say, look, I'm not the one killing, you know, the fish and taking them out of the net. I can't clear a net. And so he would purposely bring these porpoise. So he's either guarding the net from the porpoise, but bringing it back, he'd have no reason to really do that.
So can dolphins be trained to work with people? Can they perform really useful tasks?
They could. Wild dolphins really don't pick up on that, but if somebody's injured or if I'm injured, Jojo's always been there, and other dolphins have come along too to assist. Yeah.
Now, you've saved his life a few times since he saved your life.
Yeah, numerous times. We're probably even at this point. So, you know, Jojo's had a lot of problems, you know, run down by boats, the island growing, more boats, and, you know, people had, there were 3 dolphins at once, and somebody speared one of Jojo's friends or even his relative or brother, and then the other one was killed by a water ski boat, and Jojo's the one that's remaining today. Most highly protected dolphin in the world, and he's symbolic of the national parks and preservation of Turks and Caicos Islands.
Sort of like Smokey the Bear. He's sort of the official dolphin in some quarters.
Yeah, he's really doing great. You know, he's really come a long way, and he doesn't trust people entirely. But since we grew up together, he trusts me. But I wouldn't go and do this to a bear in the forest. Yeah.
Now, you've also done a lot of very interesting work with whales, and we have some video of you with some whales. Now, this video doesn't have a voice track, so we can talk over it.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and roll the whale tape, please.